Lily Thompson had 3 rules. Clean thoroughly, stay invisible, and never ask questions. That third rule shattered the moment she touched the wrong wire. The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of the Blackwood estate, casting geometric patterns across the pristine marble floors. Lily Thompson pushed her cleaning cart down the east corridor, her footsteps silent against the polished stone. She had perfected the art of moving through this mansion like a whisper, present but unnoticed, efficient but invisible. It was exactly how she wanted it. "Morning, Lily," called Mrs. Patricia Chen, the head housekeeper, as she passed by with an armful of fresh linens. Patricia was a woman in her late 50s with kind eyes and the sort of organizational mind that could run a small country. "Good morning, Mrs. Chen," Lily replied with a polite smile, the kind that was warm enough to be friendly but not so warm as to invite conversation. Patricia paused, shifting the linens in her arms. "You're on the West Wing today, right? Mr. Black's private study and the library?" Lily nodded. "Yes, ma'am. Should be finished by noon." "Perfect. And remember, don't touch anything on his desk. Don't open any drawers. Don't adjust any books." Lily recited the rules she'd heard dozens of times. "Just dust, vacuum, and polish." Patricia's expression softened. "I know you know, dear. You've been here 6 months now, and you've never put a foot wrong. It's just, Mr. Black is very particular about his private spaces." "I understand completely," Lily assured her, and she did. In the 6 months she'd worked at the Blackwood estate, she'd seen the mysterious owner exactly twice, both times at a distance, both times just a tall figure in an expensive suit moving through the foyer with purpose. The staff spoke about him in hushed tones, with a mixture of respect and something else. Not fear exactly, caution perhaps. Alexander Black was a man who valued his privacy, and everyone who worked for him understood that their employment depended on respecting that boundary. As Patricia walked away, Lily continued toward the West Wing. The mansion was enormous. 23 bedrooms, 15 bathrooms, 3 kitchens, a wine cellar, a home theater, an indoor pool, and a library that would make most universities jealous. It sat on 15 acres of manicured grounds just outside Boston, close enough to the city for convenience but far enough for absolute privacy. Lily had learned the layout within her first week. She had that kind of mind. Sharp, organized, capable of retaining complex information with ease. It was both a blessing and a curse. Some skills you couldn't just turn off, no matter how much you needed to blend into the background. She reached the heavy oak door to Mr. Black's study and knocked twice, a formality since she knew he was never home during the day. Silence answered, as expected. She pulled out her key card, each staff member had one with specific access permissions, and unlocked the door. The study was magnificent. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined 3 walls, filled with leather-bound volumes organized with military precision. A massive mahogany desk sat before the window, its surface immaculate except for a closed laptop, a fountain pen, and a single leather portfolio. The 4th wall featured a collection of abstract art that probably cost more than Lily would earn in 10 years. But what always caught her attention was the technology. Hidden behind the elegant facade was one of the most sophisticated security systems she'd ever seen, and she'd seen a few in her previous life. Cameras were cleverly concealed in the crown molding. Motion sensors were integrated into the light fixtures. The windows had pressure-sensitive alarms. Even the books on certain shelves were wired to detect if they were moved. Lily had noticed all of this within her first week, but she'd never commented on it. That would violate rule number 3, never ask questions. She began her routine, starting with dusting the bookshelves. She worked methodically, carefully, making sure each book was returned to its exact position. The morning sunlight shifted as she worked, and the study filled with a warm, golden glow. 40 minutes later, she'd finished the study and moved to the adjacent library. This room was even more impressive, a 2-story space with a spiral staircase leading to an upper gallery. Lily was dusting the lower shelves when she heard voices approaching. "I'm telling you, Marcus, the boss is getting paranoid," said a voice she recognized as belonging to James, one of the estate's security guards. 3 system checks in 1 week? That's not normal. "Maybe he has a reason," replied Marcus Webb, the head of security. Marcus was a former police officer, serious and professional, and he took his job very seriously. "Our job isn't to question, it's to maintain." "I'm not questioning, I'm just saying." Their voices faded as they passed by the library entrance. Lily continued working, but her mind caught on something Marcus had said. 3 system checks in 1 week. That was unusual. Security systems didn't need that kind of attention unless something was wrong, or unless someone suspected something might go wrong. She finished the library and checked her watch. 11:47 a.m., right on schedule. She gathered her supplies and headed back toward the service area, taking the staff corridors that ran behind the main rooms. These passages were the mansion's secret arteries, allowing staff to move invisibly while residents, or in this case the absent owner, enjoyed their privacy. Lily was halfway to the supply room when the lights went out. Complete darkness swallowed the corridor. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, from somewhere in the mansion, she heard a distant shout. Footsteps began running above her. More voices, urgent now. She stood perfectly still, her cleaner's instincts warring with something else, an old awareness she thought she'd buried. In the darkness, her other life tried to resurface. The life of someone who knew exactly what a complete power failure in a high-security building meant. Nothing good. Stay calm, she whispered to herself, a mantra she'd repeated countless times over the past 5 years. Stay invisible. This isn't your problem. But even as she thought it, her mind was already analyzing. A mansion this sophisticated didn't just lose power. It had backup generators, multiple redundancies. Unless something had failed at the system level. Lily made her way through the dark corridor by touch, her fingers trailing along the wall. She'd memorized the layout, and muscle memory guided her toward the main floor. As she emerged from the staff passage, she found chaos. Well, controlled chaos. The staff of the Blackwood estate were too professional for panic, but there was definitely concern. Backup generators should have kicked in. Try calling Mr. Black again. Security system is completely offline. That last comment made Lily pause. She found Patricia in the main foyer, organizing the staff with her usual efficiency. "Everyone, please remain calm," Patricia was saying, her voice steady despite the worry in her eyes. "Marcus is handling the situation. Just stay in the main areas where we have natural light." Lily spotted Marcus near the entrance to the security office, his phone pressed to his ear, his expression grim. She shouldn't care. She should just find a corner, stay quiet, and wait for someone to fix the problem. But old habits died hard. She approached Patricia. "Mrs. Chen, what happened?" "We're not sure, dear. Complete power failure about 5 minutes ago. The generators didn't engage, and now the entire security system is offline." Patricia lowered her voice. "Marcus has been trying to reach Mr. Black, but he's in meetings all morning. We might have to call in an emergency technician, but that means a stranger accessing Mr. Black's security system, and you know how he feels about that." Lily nodded slowly. She could imagine. A man who valued privacy enough to install a system this sophisticated wouldn't want random technicians poking around in it. "How long until someone arrives?" Lily asked. "Could be hours. It's a proprietary system. Only a few companies in Boston are certified to work on it." Lily glanced toward the security office where Marcus was now talking rapidly to someone on his phone, his frustration evident. She made a decision she knew she might regret. "Mrs. Chen," she said carefully, "I might be able to help." Patricia looked at her in surprise. "Help? Dear, this is a very complex system." "I know. But before I worked in housekeeping, I had some technical training. I might at least be able to identify the problem." It was the most personal information Lily had shared in 6 months, and she could see Patricia processing it with curiosity. But to her credit, the head housekeeper didn't ask questions. She simply looked at Marcus, then back at Lily. "If you think you can help, it's worth trying." "Marcus," she called out. "Marcus, come here for a moment." The security chief approached, still holding his phone, his expression tense. "Yes, Mrs. Chen? Lily here says she has some technical knowledge. She might be able to take a look at the system." Marcus looked at Lily skeptically. "No offense, but this isn't like fixing a coffee maker. This is a multi-million-dollar security system with proprietary coding and—" "I understand," Lily interrupted gently. "But I have experience with integrated security platforms, particularly the Sentinel 9000 series. If that's what you're running here, I might be able to at least diagnose the failure point." Marcus stared at her. "How did you know we're running a Sentinel 9000? Lily could have kicked herself. She'd revealed too much. But there was no taking it back now. "Lucky guess? It's one of the most advanced systems available for private residences. A man like Mr. Black would want the best." It wasn't really an answer, but Marcus was desperate enough not to push. "Fine. But you touch exactly what I tell you to touch. Nothing more. Understood?" "Completely." Marcus led her into the security office, a room Lily had never entered before. The walls were lined with dark monitors, 12 of them, all blank. A sophisticated control panel sat beneath the screens, currently displaying nothing but error messages on its emergency backup display. The main power went down at 11:52, Marcus explained, his professional demeanor taking over. The backup generators should have engaged within 3 seconds. They didn't. When I tried to manually activate them, nothing happened. Then the battery backups for the security system failed. All of it, simultaneously. In 15 years of security work, I've never seen a cascade failure like this. Lily approached the control panel carefully, her eyes scanning the error codes. Her mind slipped into a mode she hadn't accessed in years. Analytical, systematic, focused. It felt both foreign and familiar, like speaking a language she'd tried to forget but had never truly lost. "May I?" she asked, gesturing to the keyboard. Marcus hesitated, then nodded. "Just diagnostics. Don't try to fix anything without clearing it with me first." Lily's fingers moved across the keyboard, pulling up system logs, checking failure sequences, tracing the cascade. Other staff members had gathered near the doorway, watching with curiosity. She was dimly aware of their presence, but her focus was entirely on the screens. "There," she said after 3 minutes of searching. "Your primary failure point was in the power distribution hub. It triggered a protection protocol that shut down all secondary systems to prevent damage. But the protocol misfired. It locked out the backup generators and isolated the battery systems. Can you fix it?" Marcus asked, his skepticism giving way to hope. Lily studied the code, her mind racing through solutions. "Maybe. The lockout is software-based, not hardware. If I can access the master control protocol and manually reset the distribution sequence..." She trailed off, already typing. "Wait," Marcus said, alarm in his voice. "That's accessing the core system. I don't have authorization for that level." "Neither do I," Lily admitted. "But the alternative is waiting 4 hours for a technician who might not be able to fix it any faster. And in the meantime, this entire estate is completely unprotected. No cameras, no motion sensors, no alarms. If I were someone with bad intentions, this would be the perfect time to act." Marcus's jaw tightened. She'd made her point. "How confident are you?" 70%, Lily said honestly. "There's a chance I could make it worse, but I don't think so. The architecture is similar to systems I've worked with before." "What systems?" Marcus asked, his eyes narrowing. "Where did you train? What company did you work for?" Lily had known these questions would come. She kept her voice steady. "I'd rather not say. I left that life behind. But I promise you, I know what I'm doing." It was a non-answer, and they both knew it. But Marcus was out of options. "Do it," he said finally. "But if this goes wrong, I take full responsibility," Lily interrupted. She turned back to the screen, her fingers flying across the keyboard. The room fell silent except for the sound of typing. Lily accessed the master protocol, navigated through 3 levels of security she technically shouldn't have been able to breach, and found the corrupted command sequence. "There's your problem," she murmured more to herself than anyone else. "A timing conflict in the failsafe algorithm. The system tried to protect itself and ended up strangling its own redundancies." She began rewriting the sequence, her fingers moving with practiced efficiency. Behind her, she could feel Marcus watching every keystroke. The other staff members whispered among themselves. 5 minutes passed, then 7. Lily's eyes never left the screen. "Okay," she said finally. "I've reset the distribution protocol and cleared the lockout. When I execute this command, the system should restart in stages. First the generators, then the main power, then the security protocols. There might be a few minutes of instability, but everything should come back online." "Should," Marcus repeated. "Should," Lily confirmed. "I'm good, but I'm not perfect." "Ready?" Marcus took a deep breath. "Do it." Lily pressed enter. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. Then, somewhere deep in the mansion's infrastructure, something rumbled to life. The sound of machinery engaging echoed through the walls. A moment later, the lights flickered on. The monitors began displaying boot sequences. One by one, the screens came to life, showing camera feeds from around the estate. The control panel lit up, running through its startup diagnostics. "I don't believe it," Marcus whispered. Lily stepped back from the console, her heart racing. She'd done it. Relief and anxiety warred in her chest. Relief that she'd helped. Anxiety that she'd revealed far too much about herself. "Status?" Marcus asked, moving to the controls. "All systems coming online," Lily reported, reading the diagnostics. Cameras operational, motion sensors resetting, alarms engaging. You'll want to run a full system check once everything's stabilized, but it looks good. Marcus turned to look at her, his expression a mixture of gratitude and deep suspicion. That was impressive. Where did you learn to do that? Lily had prepared her answer. Night courses, community college. I was working toward a different career before I ended up in housekeeping. Life doesn't always go according to plan. It was vague enough to be useless, but specific enough to sound plausible. Marcus didn't look entirely convinced, but he also couldn't argue with results. Well, he said slowly, thank you. You just saved us from a major security incident, and probably saved me from a very uncomfortable conversation with Mr. Black. Happy to help, Lily said, already edging toward the door. She needed to get out of this room, out of the spotlight. I should get back to work. Mrs. Chen will wonder where I am. Wait, Marcus called after her. I need to file a report about this. I'll need to mention your assistance. Mr. Black will want to know. Just say a staff member helped, Lily interrupted quickly. It's not important who. The important thing is the system is back online. Before Marcus could argue, Lily slipped out of the security office. Her hands were trembling slightly, adrenaline and anxiety mixing in her bloodstream. She'd just made herself visible, broken her cardinal rule, and in a house belonging to a man whose business required absolute security and privacy. She found Patricia in the main foyer, organizing the staff as they returned to their duties now that the crisis had passed. Lily, Patricia exclaimed, relief evident in her voice. Marcus told me you fixed it. That was remarkable, dear. Where on earth did you learn? Just some old classes, Lily said quickly. Really, it was mostly luck. Right place, right time. Patricia looked at her thoughtfully, and Lily could see the questions forming. But the head housekeeper simply smiled. Well, we're all grateful. Why don't you take an early lunch? You've certainly earned it. Thank you, Mrs. Chen. Lily retreated to the staff break room, her mind racing. She tried so hard to stay invisible, to be just another face in the background, and in one moment of weakness, or was it compassion, she'd revealed capabilities that didn't match her cover story. She sat at the small table, staring at her hands. 5 years. She'd stayed hidden for 5 years, working jobs that kept her anonymous, moving every 6 to 8 months to avoid patterns. The Blackwood estate had seemed perfect. An absent owner, a professional staff, good pay, and a location remote enough to feel safe. But she'd just complicated everything. You should have stayed quiet, she whispered to herself. You should have let them call the technician. But even as she thought it, she knew why she'd done it. Because the alternative was hours of vulnerability for these people. Kind people like Patricia, professional people like Marcus, hardworking people who didn't deserve to have their workplace compromised. Besides, what were the odds that Alexander Black would even care? He was never here. Marcus would file his report, it would go into some administrative file, and life would continue as normal. At least that's what Lily told herself. Scene shift. Downtown Boston, Blackwood Industries headquarters. In a corner office on the 43rd floor of a glass and steel tower, Alexander Black sat in a leather chair, his eyes fixed on the laptop screen in front of him. The meeting with the board of directors had ended 20 minutes ago, but he'd sent everyone away. He needed to see this for himself. The security footage played in crisp, high definition. His mansion's security office, timestamp 11:59 a.m. Marcus stood to one side looking tense. And there at his control panel was someone Alexander had barely noticed in the 6 months she'd worked for him. Lily Thompson. Maid. Background check clean. References adequate. Quiet. Efficient. Unremarkable. Except right now she was doing something very remarkable indeed. Alexander watched as her fingers flew across the keyboard, with the confidence of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. He watched as she navigated through security protocols that should have been incomprehensible to a housekeeper. He watched as she accessed levels of his system that required specialized knowledge to even find, let alone manipulate. And then he watched as she fixed a problem that should have required a team of certified technicians and hours of work. She did it in under 10 minutes. Alexander replayed the footage, then again, and again. On the 4th viewing, he paused on a frame that showed her face clearly. Her expression was focused, analytical, completely transformed from the polite, forgettable mask she wore while cleaning. This was someone else entirely, someone with expertise, confidence, and capabilities that had nothing to do with housekeeping. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. System back online. Staff member with technical background assisted. Will provide full report. No damage, no security breach. Alexander typed back. Identity of staff member? Marcus's reply came immediately. Lily Thompson. Maid. Says she took some community college courses. Knows Sentinel 9000 architecture. Seemed reluctant to discuss details. Alexander set down his phone and steepled his fingers beneath his chin. In his line of work, legitimate business that occasionally skirted gray areas, he'd learned to trust his instincts. And every instinct he had was screaming that Lily Thompson was not what she appeared to be. Community college courses didn't teach you how to hack proprietary security systems. Night classes didn't give you the muscle memory to navigate complex code architecture without hesitation. And people who were genuinely just maids didn't become evasive when asked simple questions about their background. He opened another window on his laptop and accessed his private network. Within minutes, he had Lily Thompson's employment file in front of him. He'd seen it before when approving her hire, but he'd given it only a cursory glance. His staff were vetted by professionals. He didn't usually need to personally review housekeeping applications. Now, he read every line with intense scrutiny. Resume. Adequate but generic. Previous employment at 3 different hotels over the past 4 years. Before that, a gap of nearly a year with an explanation of personal family matters. Before that, another hotel job. References checked out when called, but Alexander made a note to have them verified more thoroughly. Home address. A small apartment in a working-class neighborhood. Emergency contact. None listed. Next of kin. None listed. That alone was unusual. Everyone had someone. A parent, a sibling, a friend. To list no one suggested either extreme isolation or deliberate concealment. Social media presence. Minimal. A Facebook account with sparse activity. No personal photos. Generic posts. An Instagram with even less content. No Twitter, no LinkedIn, no digital footprint that suggested a real life. For someone in their late 20s, her employment application listed her age as 28. This was odd. Most people her age had extensive digital histories. Lily Thompson barely existed online. Alexander made a decision. He opened a secure messaging app and typed a message to Vincent Castellano, his head of operations and the closest thing he had to a friend. Vincent. Need a deep background check. Urgent. Sending details now. He attached Lily's employment file and hit send. His phone rang 30 seconds later. Boss? Vincent's gravelly voice came through clearly. This is one of your housekeepers. What's going on? She fixed my security system this morning. Bypassed protocols, rewrote code, solved a problem that should have been impossible for her to understand, let alone repair. Silence on the line. Then, that's concerning. That's one word for it. You want me to find out who she really is? Everything, Vincent. Where she came from, what she's hiding, why she's working as a maid when she clearly has skills worth 6 figures in the private sector. And I want it yesterday. Understood. I'll start with her references and work backward. If there's something to find, I'll find it. I know you will. Alexander ended the call and returned his attention to the security footage. He watched Lily Thompson, if that was even her real name, complete her work and then practically flee the security office. He saw the anxiety in her posture, the way her hands trembled slightly as she left. She was afraid of being noticed, which meant she was hiding something. The question was, what? And more importantly, was it a threat to him? Alexander Black had built his business empire through careful calculation and strategic risk assessment. He invested in tech companies, real estate, and private security firms. Everything legal, everything above board. Mostly, he valued his privacy because privacy equaled protection. His mansion was his sanctuary, wired with the best security money could buy because he'd made enemies on his way to success. And now someone with mysterious technical skills was living inside his security perimeter, dusting his bookshelves and accessing his systems. It should have been a simple decision. Fire her immediately, remove the potential threat. But Alexander was curious, and in his experience, curiosity often led to valuable information. He returned to the footage one more time, watching the moment when Lily solved the problem. Despite his suspicion, he had to admire her competence. She'd been calm under pressure, efficient in her approach, and successful in her execution. Those were qualities he valued. If she was a threat, she was a threat worth investigating rather than eliminating. If she wasn't, well, then perhaps she was an opportunity. Alexander closed his laptop and stood, walking to the floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of Boston. Somewhere out there, Lily Thompson was returning to her quiet life, probably hoping that today's incident would be forgotten. She was going to be disappointed, because Alexander Black didn't forget anything, and he never ignored potential threats or potential assets, especially when they were living in his house. He pulled out his phone and made another call. "Marcus, this is Alexander Black." "Mr. Black, sir, about this morning. I saw the footage. You handled it well. I want you to do something for me." "Of course, sir. Anything." "Miss Thompson, Lily Thompson. I want you to keep an eye on her. Nothing obvious, just observe. What she does, where she goes in the house, how she interacts with the other staff. I want to know if anything seems unusual." Marcus hesitated. "Sir, she did help us this morning. She seemed genuinely concerned about—" "I appreciate that. I'm not suggesting she's done anything wrong. Consider it a precaution. Can you do that?" "Yes, sir, I'll be discreet." "I know you will. Thank you, Marcus." Alexander ended the call and returned to his desk. He had 3 more meetings this afternoon, a conference call with investors in California, and a dinner with a city councilman who owed him a favor. His day was fully scheduled, but in the back of his mind for the rest of the day, one question kept circulating. "Who are you really?" Lily Thompson. Scene shift. Evening, Lily's apartment. Lily unlocked the door to her apartment at 6:47 p.m., exhausted in ways that had nothing to do with physical work. The rest of her shift had passed without incident, but she'd felt exposed, as if every staff member was looking at her differently. They probably were. Her apartment was small but clean. A studio with a kitchenette, a bathroom the size of a closet, and a single large room that served as bedroom, living room, and dining room combined. The furniture was minimal. A bed, a small table with 2 chairs, a bookshelf with exactly 7 books, and a single photo in a frame. She set her bag down and locked the door behind her, engaging both the deadbolt and the chain. Force of habit from someone who always expected danger to come knocking. The apartment felt different tonight, though. Unsafe, somehow. As if by revealing herself at the mansion, she'd disturbed a balance that had kept her protected. "You're being paranoid," she told herself, but the words rang hollow. Lily moved to the small kitchenette and began making dinner. Pasta with olive oil and vegetables, simple and quick. As the water boiled, she allowed herself to think about the day, to process what she'd done. She'd been so careful for so long. 5 years of never staying anywhere longer than 8 months. 5 years of never forming close friendships, never sharing personal information, never allowing herself to become memorable. 5 years of forcing herself to be less than she was, to hide capabilities that had once defined her. And today she'd thrown all of that away to fix a security system. "Stupid," she muttered. So incredibly stupid. But even as she criticized herself, part of her knew why she'd done it. Because being invisible for 5 years had been slowly eroding who she was. Because helping people had once been her purpose, and she'd been starved for purpose. Because for 10 minutes she'd gotten to be herself again. Competent, capable, useful. And it had felt good. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Is this Lily Thompson?" Her heart stopped. Wrong number, she told herself. Just a wrong number. She deleted the text without responding and turned her phone off. The pasta was ready. She drained it, mixed in the vegetables and oil, and sat at her small table to eat. The photo on her bookshelf caught her eye, the only personal item in the entire apartment. It showed 2 women, both in their mid-20s, arms around each other's shoulders, laughing at something off-camera. They stood in front of a building with a sign that read Meridian Technologies. Both wore visitor badges. Both looked happy, confident, full of life. One of them was Lily, though she looked different. Her hair was shorter then, her expression more open. She looked like someone who didn't carry the weight of terrible choices. The other woman was Sarah Mitchell, her best friend, her colleague, the person who'd convinced her to speak up when she discovered the corruption, the person who'd paid the price for that decision. Lily turned the photo face down. She couldn't look at it tonight, not after the day she'd had. She finished her dinner, washed her single plate and fork, and prepared for bed. Tomorrow would be better. Tomorrow she'd go back to being invisible, and hopefully everyone would forget about the maid who'd fixed the security system. As she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, Lily tried to believe her own reassurances. She was good at lying to others. She'd never been very good at lying to herself. Final scene. The mansion, security office, 9:47 p.m. Marcus Webb sat in the security office long after his shift had officially ended, nursing a cold coffee and reviewing the day's footage. On the screen in front of him, Lily Thompson moved through the mansion's corridors, her cleaning cart in front of her, her posture perfect, her expression neutral. She looked exactly like what she was supposed to be, an unremarkable maid doing unremarkable work. But Marcus had been in security for 20 years, and he'd learned to trust his instincts. Something about Lily Thompson didn't add up. He pulled up her employee file on his computer, reading through it for the third time that evening. Everything seemed normal, but normal could be manufactured. He'd seen it before. People running from something, building new identities, trying to disappear into ordinary jobs. The question was, what was she running from? His phone rang. Mr. Black's private number. Marcus speaking. Any observations? Alexander Black's voice was crisp, professional, all business. Nothing unusual, sir. She finished her shift, went home to her apartment in Dorchester. She keeps to herself, doesn't socialize much with the other staff. And this morning? Anyone else notice her skills? Mrs. Chen was impressed, but didn't ask too many questions. A few other staff members saw her working on the system, but I don't think they understood what they were seeing. To most people, it just looked like typing on a computer. But you understood. It wasn't a question, but Marcus answered anyway. Yes, sir. I understood. What she did, that wasn't amateur hour. That was professional-grade technical knowledge. Your assessment? Marcus chose his words carefully. Either she's had serious training that doesn't appear in her file, or she's working with someone who does. Neither option is particularly comforting given the nature of your security concerns. Agreed. Keep watching her. I want to know if she does anything unusual, if anyone unusual contacts her, if anything seems off. Understood, sir. One more thing. When she left today, she seemed worried, like she regretted helping. Interesting. Why would someone regret doing a good deed? Only one reason I can think of, sir. She didn't want the attention. Alexander Black was silent for a moment. People who don't want attention are usually hiding something. Find out what she's hiding, Marcus. Yes, sir. The call ended. Marcus leaned back in his chair, his eyes on the monitors. Most of the mansion was dark now, just a few lights illuminating the grounds. The security system hummed smoothly, fully operational thanks to Lily Thompson's intervention. He should be grateful. Instead, he was suspicious, because in his experience, people who came out of nowhere to save the day usually had agendas of their own. Closing scene, split screen effect. In his downtown office, Alexander Black opened a secure folder on his laptop. Inside was every piece of information his team had been able to gather about Lily Thompson in the past 4 hours. It wasn't much, but it was enough to confirm his suspicions. The woman working as his maid was hiding something. In her small apartment, Lily Thompson sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her phone. She'd turned it back on to set her alarm for the morning and found 3 more messages from the unknown number. We need to talk. It's about the Meridian case. Please respond. It's important. Her hands trembled as she deleted each message. Someone had found her. After 5 years of careful hiding, someone had found her. And tomorrow she'd have to go back to the mansion and pretend everything was fine. On Alexander's laptop screen, a notification popped up. Vincent had sent preliminary results from the background check. Alexander clicked to open the file. The first line made him lean forward. Subject's employment history shows patterns consistent with identity concealment. Recommend immediate further investigation. In her apartment, Lily turned off her phone again and lay down, pulling the blanket over herself. She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to block out the fear that was building in her chest. It's fine, she whispered into the darkness. No one knows. You're safe. It's all fine. But even as she said it, in a downtown office miles away, Alexander Black was reviewing security footage, reading preliminary reports, and making plans. He paused the video on a clear frame of Lily's face. She was looking directly at the camera, not at it exactly, but toward it, and for just a moment her mask had slipped. He saw intelligence in her eyes, wariness, and something else. Fear. Alexander picked up his phone and sent a text to Vincent. Priority 1 investigation. Whatever it takes. I want answers by end of week. The response came immediately. Already on it, boss. Alexander closed his laptop, but his mind continued working. Somewhere in the intersection of his need for security and her need to stay hidden, there was a truth waiting to be uncovered. He intended to find it. Alexander Black had survived in his world by trusting no one. but the woman polishing his floors had just become his biggest question mark. 3 days after the security incident, Alexander Black did something he rarely did. He went home in the middle of the day. The staff noticed immediately. "Mr. Black is here," Patricia Chen whispered to James, one of the security guards, as Alexander's black Mercedes pulled through the front gates at 2:15 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon. During the day, this never happens. James peered through the window of the guard station. "Maybe he forgot something." "Maybe," Patricia replied, though her tone suggested she didn't believe it. Neither did Lily, who was cleaning the second-floor guest rooms when she heard the murmurs spreading through the staff. Mr. Black was home. Mr. Black never came home during the day. Something had changed. She tried to tell herself it had nothing to do with her, that his presence was coincidental. But the knot of anxiety in her stomach told a different story. For 3 days she'd been waiting for consequences. 3 days of jumping at every phone call, every time Patricia approached her with that thoughtful expression. 3 days of wondering when the other shoe would drop. The mysterious text messages had stopped after that first night, which should have been a relief. Instead, it felt ominous, like someone was watching, waiting, planning. And now Alexander Black was home. Lily finished straightening the guest room and checked her assignment sheet. The West Wing wasn't on her schedule today, which meant she could potentially avoid him entirely. She just needed to stay on the opposite side of the mansion, keep her head down and— "Lily?" Patricia's voice came from the doorway. "Mr. Black would like to see you in his study." The knot in Lily's stomach tightened into a fist. "Me? Are you sure?" "Quite sure, dear. He asked for you specifically." Patricia's expression was curious, but not unkind. "Don't worry. I'm sure it's just to thank you for helping with the security system the other day." Lily nodded, not trusting her voice. She set down her cleaning supplies and followed Patricia through the corridors, her mind racing through possibilities. Best case, he wanted to thank her and maybe give her a bonus. Worst case, he'd discovered something about her past and was about to fire her, or turn her in to whoever might be looking for her. They reached the study door. Patricia knocked twice, then opened it. "Mr. Black, Lily Thompson is here. Send her in, please." The voice was deep, cultured, with an edge of authority that made it clear this was someone used to being obeyed. Lily had heard it only once before, months ago, when she'd passed him in the hallway. Now, about to face him directly, she felt her carefully constructed composure threatening to crack. "Go ahead, dear," Patricia encouraged gently. Lily stepped into the study. Alexander Black stood by the window, hands in his pockets, silhouetted against the afternoon light. He was tall, at least 6'2", with dark hair styled impeccably and a suit that probably cost more than Lily earned in a month. As she entered, he turned to face her. His eyes were striking, a deep gray that seemed to see far more than they should. They fixed on her with an intensity that made her want to step backward. "Miss Thompson," he said, his voice neutral, "thank you for coming. Please close the door and have a seat." Lily closed the door but hesitated at the second instruction. Sitting felt too informal, too vulnerable. "If it's all the same to you, sir, I'd prefer to stand. I have cleaning supplies on my cart outside and—" "I insist." It wasn't a request. She sat in one of the leather chairs facing his desk, keeping her posture perfect, her hands folded in her lap. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she forced herself to remain calm. Alexander moved to his desk, but didn't sit. Instead, he leaned against it, studying her with that unsettling gaze. "I understand you helped Marcus with our security issue on Monday." "Yes, sir. I hope that was appropriate. I know I'm not officially—" "It was more than appropriate. It was impressive." He paused. "Remarkably impressive, actually. Marcus tells me you fixed a problem that should have required a specialized technician. I got lucky, sir. The solution was simpler than it appeared." "Was it?" Alexander tilted his head slightly. "Because I've reviewed the system logs. What you did wasn't simple at all. You accessed core protocols, rewrote corrupted code, and restored a multi-layered security architecture in under 10 minutes. That requires training. Significant training." Lily kept her expression neutral, though her heart was hammering. "I took some technical courses a few years ago. Computer systems, basic programming. I suppose I retained more than I thought." "Which institution?" "I'm sorry. Where did you take these courses? Which school?" She'd prepared for this question, had her answer ready. "Bunker Hill Community College. A few night classes, nothing formal. I never completed a degree." Alexander reached behind him and picked up a tablet from his desk. He tapped the screen a few times, then read aloud. Bunker Hill Community College offers introductory courses in computer literacy, basic programming in Python and Java, and network fundamentals. None of these courses cover proprietary security architecture or advanced system diagnostics. He looked up. So where did you really learn, Miss Thompson? Lily met his gaze steadily. With respect, sir, I'm not sure what you're implying. I helped during an emergency. If I overstepped my bounds, I apologize. It won't happen again. I'm not criticizing. I'm curious. He set the tablet down. You see, Miss Thompson, I've been in business for 15 years. I've learned to pay attention to inconsistencies, and you are full of inconsistencies. I'm just a maid, Mr. Black. Are you? He moved around the desk, sitting in his chair now, creating a more formal interview dynamic. Your resume says you've worked at 3 different hotels over the past 4 years. I had my people call those hotels. Your references check out technically, but when we asked specific questions about your work there, the details were vague, almost as if people were reading from a script. Lily's mouth went dry. He'd investigated her. Of course he had. A man with his resources, his need for security. Why wouldn't he investigate someone who'd accessed his systems? I don't know what to tell you, sir, she said carefully. I did work at those hotels. If my former supervisors don't remember me clearly, perhaps that's because I was good at my job. I didn't cause problems. I was reliable, but unremarkable. Unremarkable people don't fix advanced security systems. Lucky people do lucky things sometimes. Alexander leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. Miss Thompson, I'm going to be direct with you. I don't know who you are or what you're hiding, but I know you're hiding something. Your background doesn't add up. Your skills don't match your resume, and someone with your capabilities working as a maid suggests you're either running from something or hiding from someone. Lily forced herself to breathe normally. That's quite an accusation based on fixing one technical problem. It's an observation, not an accusation. There's a difference. He leaned forward slightly. Here's my position. I value my privacy and my security. I've worked hard to build both. Having someone in my home who might represent an unknown variable concerns me. Can you understand that? Yes, sir. Good. So I'm going to ask you directly, and I'd appreciate an honest answer. Should I be concerned about you, Miss Thompson? Are you a threat to me or my interests? The question hung in the air between them. Lily knew this was a pivotal moment. She could lie completely, stick to her cover story, hope he couldn't find anything concrete. Or she could give him a partial truth, enough to satisfy his curiosity without revealing everything. She chose the middle path. No, Mr. Black, I'm not a threat to you, she said quietly. You're right that I have skills beyond housekeeping. You're right that my past is complicated, but I'm not here to harm you or steal from you or compromise your security. I took this job because I needed work and wanted privacy. That's all. Why do you need privacy? For the same reason you do, I imagine. Because the alternative is worse. Something flickered in Alexander's eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or recognition. They stared at each other for a long moment. 2 people with secrets, trying to decide how much to trust. I could fire you, Alexander said finally. Eliminate the variable entirely. You could, Lily agreed. But if I were actually a threat, would I have helped fix your security system? Or would I have let it stay broken, making your home vulnerable? He nodded slowly, as if she'd confirmed something he'd already concluded. A fair point. So why did you help? Because it was the right thing to do. Because people I respect work here, and they deserve to be safe. And because... She hesitated, then decided honesty might serve her better than evasion. Because I spent too many years using my skills to help people. It's hard to turn that off, even when staying invisible would be smarter. You used your skills to help people, Alexander repeated. Past tense. What changed? Life happened, Mr. Black. Life always happens. He studied her for another moment, then made a decision. All right, Miss Thompson, I'm going to take a calculated risk. You can keep your job here, but on one condition. What condition? If I have questions about technical matters, if I need someone with your particular expertise, you make yourself available. In exchange, I won't dig any deeper into your background. Your past stays your past, as long as it doesn't impact my security. Lily processed this carefully. It was better than being fired, but it also meant continuing exposure. Every time she helped him, she'd be reinforcing her visibility, her value, and her vulnerability. But what choice did she have? That seems fair, she said. Good. Alexander stood, signaling the conversation was over. One more thing. If anyone comes asking about you, anyone at all, I want to know immediately. Can you do that? The request surprised her. Why would you want to know? Because, Miss Thompson, I protect what's mine, and everyone who works in this house is under my protection, whether they realize it or not. There was something in his tone, a certainty, an almost possessive quality that should have alarmed her. Instead, oddly, it made her feel safer than she had in months. Thank you, sir, she said quietly. You can go. And Miss Thompson? He waited until she turned back at the door. Whatever you're running from, I hope you've run far enough. Lily left the study, her legs unsteady. The conversation had gone better than she'd feared, but worse than she'd hoped. He knew she was hiding something. He'd chosen not to pursue it, but that protection was conditional, and the way he'd looked at her in those final moments, it wasn't suspicion anymore. It was something else. Interest, perhaps. Curiosity. Maybe even concern. All of which made him more dangerous than she'd anticipated, because Lily had learned the hard way that caring about people was a liability, especially when those people had the resources to uncover truths you'd spent 5 years burying. Scene shift. Alexander's office, evening. At 7 p.m., Vincent Castellano arrived at the mansion with a thick folder. He found Alexander in his study, reviewing financial reports, though Vincent suspected his boss's mind was elsewhere. Got your background check, Vincent said, dropping the folder on the desk. You're not going to like it. Alexander looked up. Tell me. Lily Thompson. That's her real name, at least according to Social Security records. Age 28. Born in Portland, Oregon. Graduated MIT with a degree in computer engineering, summa cum laude. Top of her class. Alexander's eyebrows rose. MIT? Gets better. After graduation, she was hired by Meridian Technologies, a defense contractor working on secure communication systems. Classified projects, government clearance, the whole package. She was there for 3 years, rapidly promoted, brilliant by all accounts. And then, Vincent flipped open the folder, revealing a newspaper clipping. 5 years ago, she discovered irregularities in one of the projects. Turns out senior management was selling proprietary technology to foreign buyers. She reported it internally. Nothing happened, so she went to federal authorities. Whistleblower, Alexander said quietly. Exactly. The investigation confirmed her allegations. 6 executives were charged. The company collapsed. Hundreds of people lost their jobs. And Lily Thompson got death threats from people who blamed her for destroying their livelihoods. Was she in witness protection? No, which is strange. The feds offered, but she declined. Instead, she just disappeared, quit her job, left her apartment, deleted her social media, vanished completely. The few people who tried to find her hit dead ends. Alexander picked up the newspaper clipping, studying the photo. It showed a younger Lily, professional attire, speaking at what looked like a press conference. Her expression was determined but haunted. What happened to the people who threatened her? He asked. Most were just angry employees venting online. But there were a few credible threats. 2 individuals were arrested for attempting to locate her. One was released on probation 2 years ago. The other got out 6 months ago. Names? Vincent consulted his notes. Richard Davison and Marcus Chen. Both former Meridian employees who lost significant stock options when the company collapsed. Both blamed Lily for ruining their lives. Alexander set down the clipping. So she's been running for 5 years from people who want revenge for her doing the right thing. That's the summary, yeah. Pretty tragic, actually. She destroyed her own career to expose corruption, and now she's hiding out as a maid because she's afraid of retaliation. Any indication either of these men knows where she is? Nothing concrete, but Vincent hesitated. There's been some unusual activity. Someone's been making inquiries about her in the past week, calling her old contacts, checking previous addresses, professional level searching. You think it's one of them? Or someone working for them? Either way, boss, this woman might be bringing trouble to your door. You sure you want her staying here? Alexander was quiet for a long moment, his eyes on the photograph. Then he closed the folder decisively. She stays. Increase security protocols. I want to know if anyone comes within a mile of this property asking questions. And Vincent? Put someone on those 2 men who threatened her. I want to know where they are and what they're doing. Vincent raised an eyebrow. You're protecting her. I'm protecting my property. She works for me, which means she's my responsibility. Sure, boss, if you say so. Vincent's tone suggested he didn't buy it, but he knew better than to push. After Vincent left, Alexander sat alone in his study, thinking about Lily Thompson. Or rather, about the woman she'd been before she became Lily Thompson, Maid, an invisible person, brilliant MIT graduate, ethical whistleblower, someone who'd sacrificed everything to expose wrongdoing. And now she was polishing his floors because she was too afraid to use her real skills. It bothered him more than it should. Alexander had encountered many people in his career, competitors, partners, employees, adversaries. But something about Lily's situation struck a chord he hadn't expected. Maybe because he understood what it meant to hide who you really were, to build walls between yourself and the world, because letting people too close was dangerous. He'd built his own walls high and thick, and now somehow a woman with a cleaning cart had managed to make him curious about what lay on the other side of hers. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, the security chief, person of interest, spotted near the property. Male, approximately 40s, taking photos of the gate, left when approached, running plates now. Alexander's jaw tightened. He typed back, "Keep Miss Thompson inside. Don't let her leave the property until I give clearance." Then he made another call. "Vincent, we might have a situation. Someone's been surveilling the estate." Scene shift. Lily's perspective, same evening. Lily was finishing her shift when Patricia found her. "Dear, there's been a small situation. Mr. Black has asked that all staff remain on property for the next few hours. Just a precaution while security checks something out." "What kind of situation?" "Nothing to worry about," Patricia assured her, though her expression suggested otherwise. "Probably just overly cautious. You know how Mr. Black is about security." Lily knew exactly how he was, and she knew that just a precaution likely meant something specific had happened. Someone had found her. She was sure of it. She retreated to the staff break room, trying to calm her racing thoughts. 5 years. She'd made it 5 years. And now, in 1 week, everything was unraveling. First, the security system incident that made her visible. Then, Alexander Black investigating her. Now someone surveilling the property. She should run. Pack a bag, disappear into the night, start over somewhere new. But she was tired of running. So tired. A knock on the break room door made her jump. Alexander Black stood in the doorway, still in his suit, though he'd loosened his tie. "Miss Thompson, may I come in?" She nodded, unable to speak. He closed the door and sat across from her at the small table. For a moment he just looked at her, and Lily had the strangest feeling he was seeing her clearly for the first time. "I know about Meridian Technologies," he said quietly. Lily's breath caught. "How? I had you investigated after our conversation. I'm sorry, but I needed to know if you represented a threat." He held up a hand as she started to stand. "Please, let me finish. I know about the whistleblowing. I know about the threats. And I know someone's been looking for you." Tears burned in Lily's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "Are you going to fire me?" "No, I'm going to protect you." She stared at him. "Why would you do that?" "Because what you did 5 years ago took courage, and because no one should have to hide for doing the right thing." He leaned forward. "Someone was surveilling my property tonight. We don't know who yet, but I'm not taking chances. I'd like you to stay here at the mansion, in the guest quarters, until we know more." "I can't." "You can, and you will. This house has the best security in Boston. If someone is looking for you, this is the safest place you could be." Lily shook her head slowly. "You don't understand. People around me get hurt. My friend Sarah, she was the one who encouraged me to report the corruption. She lost her job. Her reputation was destroyed. She can't find work in the industry anymore. Everyone I've cared about has paid a price for knowing me." "Then it's fortunate I'm not easy to hurt," Alexander said simply. "Miss Thompson, Lily, you've been running long enough. Let someone else stand guard for a while." It was the use of her first name that broke her. Something about hearing it in his voice, after so long being invisible, being nobody. A single tear escaped, tracking down her cheek before she could stop it. "I don't even know who you really are," she whispered. "No," he agreed. "But you will. And maybe, eventually, you'll trust me enough to stop running." Later that night, Lily stood in the guest bedroom on the 3rd floor, staring out at the dark grounds. Her small bag of belongings sat on the bed. Everything she owned that mattered could fit in one backpack. Always ready to run. That was who she'd become. On Alexander's desk in his study, a file lay open. Inside were police reports, threat assessments, and photographs. His phone rang, and he answered immediately. "Vincent, tell me, got an ID on the man photographing the property? Richard Davison, one of the two who threatened Lily Thompson 5 years ago. He's staying at a motel 10 miles from here." Alexander's expression hardened. Have him watched. Every movement, every phone call. I want to know why he's here and who he's working with. Already on it, boss. What are you thinking? I'm thinking Miss Thompson has been afraid long enough. It's time someone reminded Mr. Davison that there are consequences for threatening innocent people. Just remember, we do this legally. Always, Vincent. I'm a respectable businessman. A pause. With very well-connected lawyers. In her room, Lily's phone buzzed. The unknown number again. I know where you are. We need to talk before things get complicated. She stared at the message, her hand trembling as she reached for it. But before she could respond, there was a knock at her door. Miss Thompson? It was Alexander's voice. May I come in? She deleted the message and opened the door. Alexander stood there, and in his hand was a file folder with her name on it, the police file from 5 years ago. I think, he said quietly, it's time we had a completely honest conversation about who's looking for you and what we're going to do about it. Lily looked at the file, then at Alexander's face. In his gray eyes, she saw something she hadn't expected, determination. Not to expose her, not to use her, to protect her. She nodded slowly and stepped aside to let him in. Some secrets are buried for protection. Others are buried because the truth is too dangerous to exist. Alexander laid the file on the table between them. Tell me everything, he said quietly. Lily took a breath. 5 years ago, I discovered executives at Meridian Technologies were selling classified information. I reported it. The company collapsed. People lost everything and blamed me. You did the right thing. The right thing destroyed lives. 2 men, Richard Davison and Marcus Chen, threatened me. I disappeared rather than fight. Alexander's expression hardened. Davison is here. He's been watching this property, but he won't get near you. Why are you helping me? Because you stood up when it mattered. Because hiding shouldn't be your life. He paused. Because everyone deserves someone in their corner. Lily felt tears threaten. I don't know how to stop running. Then learn. Stay here. Let me handle this. Before she could respond, Alexander's phone rang. Vincent's voice was urgent. Boss, we have a problem. Someone broke into Lily's apartment. Lily's face went pale. On her mirror, written in lipstick, found you. Alexander's expression turned cold. Pack a bag, Lily. You're staying here until I end this, and I will end it. For the first time in 5 years, she didn't argue. Alexander Black had built an empire on control. But protecting Lily Thompson was making him realize some things can't be controlled, like how much you're willing to risk for someone. Lily stood in the guest quarters, staring at the elegant room that would be her home for the foreseeable future. The space was larger than her entire apartment, a king-sized bed with silk linens, a sitting area with plush chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the gardens. It was beautiful, luxurious, and completely overwhelming. She'd spent 5 years in tiny apartments, always ready to leave at a moment's notice. Now she was in a mansion, protected by security systems, and a man who barely knew her, but had chosen to stand between her and her past. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Alexander stood in the doorway, holding a tray with tea and sandwiches. I thought you might be hungry, he said. It's been a long day. Lily accepted the tray, touched by the gesture. You didn't have to do this. I know. But I wanted to. He gestured to the sitting area. May I? They sat together, and for a moment there was comfortable silence. Then Alexander spoke, his voice thoughtful. When I built this house, I designed it to be a fortress. Security was everything. But I'm realizing now that the strongest protection isn't walls and cameras. It's having someone you can trust standing beside you. I'm not used to trusting people, Lily admitted quietly. Neither am I. But maybe we can learn together. Over the next 3 days, Alexander's team worked with quiet efficiency. Vincent discovered that Richard Davison had been hired by Marcus Chen, the other man from Lily's past. Chen believed she had kept copies of the evidence she'd given to authorities years ago. He was right. On the 4th evening, Lily found Alexander in his study, reviewing documents. She'd been avoiding this conversation, but it was time. I need to tell you something, she said from the doorway. Alexander looked up, his expression attentive. Come in. She sat across from him, gathering her courage. I do have backup files of the evidence, encrypted, stored in 3 separate locations. I kept them in case anyone tried to discredit what I'd exposed or claim it never happened. But I've never wanted to use them. They represent everything I lost. Alexander leaned forward. What do you want to do now? I spent 5 years running, hiding, being afraid. I'm tired of living that way. But I don't know how to stop. Then we make it stop. Together. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling my attorney. We're going to arrange a formal meeting with Chen. Neutral location, legal representation for everyone. You'll offer him a deal. The evidence goes to a trusted federal contact with a delayed release date. If he cooperates with any ongoing investigations, he receives immunity. If he continues threatening you, everything becomes public immediately, and my legal team ensures maximum consequences. Will he agree? He will when he understands that I don't make idle threats, and that you're not alone anymore. The meeting. 1 week later. The law office was elegant and intimidating, all dark wood and leather. Lily sat at a conference table, Alexander beside her, his presence solid and reassuring. Across from them sat Marcus Chen and his attorney, a sharp-looking woman with a briefcase full of documents. Chen looked older than his photo, worn down by years of bitterness. He glared at Lily with barely concealed anger. Miss Thompson, Chen's attorney began professionally, my client wishes to resolve this matter amicably and without further complications. Lily found her voice, and it was steadier than she'd expected. 5 years ago, I discovered serious wrongdoing at Meridian Technologies. I reported it through proper channels. When nothing happened, I went to federal authorities. I did what was right. You destroyed hundreds of lives, Chen said bitterly. No, Lily replied firmly. The executives who sold classified information to foreign buyers destroyed Meridian Technologies. I refused to stay silent while people committed crimes. I'm sorry you lost your job and your investments, Mr. Chen. I truly am. But I won't apologize for exposing corruption. Alexander's hand moved to rest on the table near hers, not touching, but close enough that she felt his support. Here's the situation, he said, his voice calm but carrying unmistakable authority. Miss Thompson has comprehensive evidence that will be delivered to federal authorities. We're offering a 6-month delayed release. During that time, Mr. Chen can cooperate fully with investigators. If he does, we'll recommend immunity for any minor involvement. If he continues threatening Miss Thompson or attempts to interfere with her life in any way, the evidence releases immediately, and I personally ensure that my legal team pursues every possible consequence. Chen's attorney whispered urgently in her client's ear. Lily watched Chen's face cycle through emotions, anger, calculation, resignation. Finally, he spoke. What guarantee do I have that she won't use this against me later? My word, Lily said quietly, which is more than you gave me when you threatened me 5 years ago. But I'm not interested in revenge, Mr. Chen. I just want to live my life without fear. Can you understand that? Something in Chen's expression shifted. For a moment, Lily saw past his anger to the fear underneath, fear that his own poor choices would catch up with him. I agree to your terms, he said finally. I'll cooperate with investigators, but I want it in writing that this ends here. Agreed, Alexander said. My attorney will draw up the documents. The meeting concluded with handshakes and signatures. As they left the building, Lily felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Genuine relief, not just temporary safety, but actual resolution. It's really over, she whispered. It's really over, Alexander confirmed. You're free, Lily. 3 months later, spring arrived at the Blackwood estate with an explosion of color. The gardens bloomed, the trees filled with new leaves, and the mansion felt less like a fortress and more like a home. Lily no longer worked as a maid. She'd become Alexander's security consultant, using her real skills, her real name, her real expertise. The other staff had adjusted to the change with surprising grace, especially Patricia, who'd simply smiled knowingly and said, I always knew there was more to you, dear. The dynamic between Lily and Alexander had evolved into something neither of them had anticipated. They worked together seamlessly, her technical knowledge complementing his strategic thinking. But more than that, they'd become friends. Real friends who shared morning coffee in the library, debated security protocols over lunch, and spent quiet evenings simply existing in the same space. One evening, Lily found Alexander on the terrace, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. She joined him, standing beside him at the railing. Beautiful, she said softly. It is, he agreed, though he was looking at her rather than the sunset. Alexander, can I ask you something? Always. Do you regret it? Taking me in, protecting me? It must have complicated your life. He turned to face her fully. Lily, meeting you was the least complicated thing that's happened to me in years. Yes, there was a situation to resolve, But you reminded me of something I'd forgotten. What's that? That walls can't protect you from loneliness. That security systems can't replace human connection. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is trust someone. Lily felt tears prick her eyes. I spent 5 years invisible, thinking that was the only way to survive. I forgot what it felt like to be seen, to be known, to matter to someone. You matter, Lily. You always did. You just needed a safe place to remember that. She smiled through her tears. You gave me more than safety. You gave me my life back. My real life, not the shadow I was living. We gave each other something, Alexander said quietly. I was living in my own kind of shadow. Successful, secure, but completely alone. You showed me that protection and connection aren't opposites. They can coexist. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the first stars began appearing in the darkening sky. Lily looked at the mansion, the gardens, the life she'd built from the ruins of her old one. I never thought I'd stop running, she admitted. Sometimes the people who save us are the ones we never expected, Alexander said. And sometimes, they're exactly who we needed when we needed them most. Lily turned to him. Is that your way of saying you needed saving too? He smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his entire face. Maybe we saved each other. Maybe that's how it's supposed to work. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge one by one. For the first time in 5 years, Lily felt completely at peace. Not because all danger had vanished. Life was never that simple. But because she'd finally stopped running. She'd found someone who valued her truth more than her invisibility, who saw her capabilities as assets rather than threats, who chose to stand beside her instead of behind walls. And Alexander, who'd spent years building an empire of solitude, had discovered that the greatest wealth wasn't found in security systems or business success. It was found in genuine human connection. Lily, he said softly. Yes? Welcome home. She smiled, her heart full. Thank you, Alexander, for everything. For believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself. Always, he promised. The night deepened around them, but inside the Blackwood estate, lights glowed warmly. A fortress had become a home. 2 guarded hearts had learned to trust, and 2 people who'd spent years hiding had finally found the courage to be seen.